The crimson emergency lights bathed the control room of Alaris 7 in an eerie glow, casting long shadows across the stark metal walls. Dr. Sienna Marlowe's fingers flew across the holographic interface, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps as she fought to stabilize the life support systems. Another explosion rocked the outpost and she grabbed the edge of the console to steady herself. Sixth raid this month. Commander Rafe Lynn set his voice tight with controlled anger as he strode into the command center. His security uniform was torn at the shoulder, and a thin line of blood trickled down his temple. The defense grid is at 28% and falling. We can't withstand another assault. Sienna brushed a strand of dark hair from her face, leaving a smudge of grime across her forehead. As the colony's lead xenobiologist, she had never expected to become so intimately familiar with emergency protocols and defense systems. Any word from the Galactic Council? Lynn's jaw tightened. Same response as always. Your petition for additional resources has been received and will be processed according to Council Directive 5291. His voice dripped with bitter mockery as he recited the bureaucratic response. They've been processing our requests for 8 months while our people die. Alaris 7 had once been a promising mining outpost on the edge of the Tau Ceti system. Rich in rare minerals and xenobiological specimens, it had attracted scientists, miners, and their families over 2,000 souls seeking opportunity on the frontier. Now, with pirate raids intensifying and life support systems failing, it was becoming a tomb. Sienna pulled up the latest damage reports on her screen. Hydroponics Bay 3 is compromised. We've lost another 15% of our food production capacity. She didn't need to elaborate on what that meant. Everyone on the station was already on half rations. Lynn moved to the viewport, staring out at the barren, rocky landscape of Alaris 7. The dome that protected their colony was designed to withstand meteor impacts and radiation, but not sustained weapons fire. Hairline fractures had begun to appear in the eastern quadrant. We trusted the Council's promises of protection when we established this colony. Some of us staked our lives on those words. The Council has too many outposts to protect, Sienna replied, though the defense rang hollow, even to her own ears. And we're so far from the core systems. Far enough to be forgotten, Lynn finished for her, but not far enough to escape notice from the raiders. The comm system crackled to life with static before the panicked voice of Lieutenant Kareem broke through. Commander Lynn, multiple hostiles dropping out of hyperspace. This isn't a raid, it's a full-scale invasion force. Lynn was already moving toward the door. Sound general quarters. Get all non-security personnel to the emergency shelters. He paused at the threshold, looking back at Sienna. And pray the Council receives our distress call this time. Sienna nodded, but as the doors hissed shut behind him, she knew prayers weren't enough anymore. The Galactic Council had ignored their pleas for too long. She began the process of initiating the automated distress beacon, watching as the system ran through its diagnostic sequence. The standard protocol would relay their call to the nearest Council outpost, which would then decide whether to dispatch aid. The same protocol that had failed them a dozen times before. Another explosion rocked the colony stronger than any previous impact. The lights flickered and died, plunging the control room into darkness before the emergency systems kicked in with a dull hum. Status report, Sienna called into her comm unit. They've taken out the main generator, came Lynn's strained reply over the sounds of weapons fire. Defense grid is down. They're breaching the south quadrant. A cold knot of fear formed in Sienna's stomach. Without the defense grid, they were as good as dead. The pirates would strip the colony of everything valuable, including people for the slave markets on the rim. What about the distress beacon? She asked, already suspecting the answer. Comm array destroyed in the first salvo, Lynn confirmed. We're cut off, completely. Sienna closed her eyes, allowing herself one moment of despair before straightening her shoulders. There was one option left, a theoretical possibility she had been working on during the sleepless nights between raids. It was untested, possibly suicidal, but it was all they had. Commander, I need you to buy me some time, she said, moving toward the secondary lab adjacent to the control room. I'm going to try something. What are you planning, Sienna? Lynn's voice was skeptical but trusting. Remember that hyper-relay prototype I've been tinkering with, the one designed to study quantum entanglement in xenobiological specimens. She was already gathering components, her movements quick and precise. I think I can reconfigure it to send a direct signal bypassing the council relays entirely, to where the nearest independent settlement is over 10 light-years away. Sienna hesitated. Not to the settlements, to Earth. A weighted silence followed. Earth, humanity's cradle and greatest enigma. For decades, Earth had withdrawn from galactic affairs, refusing council membership and keeping its borders closed to all but the most essential diplomatic traffic. Rumors abounded about massive military buildups, about technological advances that made council science look primitive by comparison, about a population hardened by generations of living on what many species considered a death world. Earth hasn't answered a distress call in 50 years, Lynn finally said. Not since the Proxima incident. Then maybe it's time they did. Sienna connected the final components of her makeshift transmitter. Besides, we're out of options. Over the next hour, as the sounds of battle drew closer to the control center, Sienna worked feverishly to align the hyper-relay. The device hadn't been designed for communication. It was a research tool meant to detect quantum signals across vast distances. Repurposing it for a focused transmission would push the equipment far beyond its intended limits. Lynn checked in periodically, his reports growing increasingly grim. The security forces were being pushed back corridor by corridor. The pirates were not just looters, but a well-organized armada, led by the notorious warlord, Kazak Dren. We've sealed the bulkheads to sections 3 through 8. Lynn reported, his breathing labored. But they're cutting through. 30 minutes, maybe less, before they reach the control center. Sienna made the final adjustments to her improvised transmitter. The power draw was immense, tapping into the last reserves of the colony's emergency systems. When she activated it, they would lose life support in several sections of the colony. I'm ready, she said, her finger hovering over the activation sequence. But Lynn, this will divert power from the medical bay and the remaining shelters. Do it, Lynn said without hesitation. Those people are dead anyway if the pirates get through. We all are. Sienna initiated the sequence. The lights dimmed throughout the control room as the hyper-relay drew power, its components glowing with an unearthly blue light. The device hummed, then shrieked with feedback as it strained to generate a quantum entanglement field, powerful enough to transmit across interstellar distances. Record your message, Lynn urged through the comm. Make it count. We won't get a second chance. Sienna leaned toward the transmitter, her heart pounding in her chest. What could she possibly say to convince Earth, distant, isolated Earth, to come to their aid when even the Galactic Council had abandoned them? She thought of the families huddled in the emergency shelters of the scientists and miners who had come to Alaris 7 with dreams of building something meaningful on the frontier. She took a deep breath and spoke directly into the transmitter. This is Dr. Sienna Marlowe of Alaris 7, a human colony in the Tau Ceti system. We are under attack by a pirate armada commanded by Kazak Dren. Our defenses have failed. The Galactic Council has ignored our pleas for help. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. We call Earth. Send help or witness our annihilation. These are your people dying, your children. We have nowhere else to turn. She terminated the transmission, watching as the hyper-relay's components began to melt from the strain, the acrid smell of burning circuitry filling the control room. The device sputtered once-twice, then exploded in a shower of sparks, leaving Sienna wondering if the message had been sent at all. Lynn's voice came through the comm, suddenly urgent. Sienna, get to Shelter 5. They've broken through the last barricade. She grabbed her research tablet and ran, the sound of weapons fire growing louder with each passing moment. The corridors were bathed in the red glow of emergency lighting, punctuated by the occasional spark from damaged systems. She passed the bodies of security personnel who had given their lives to buy time for the evacuation, their faces frozen in final defiance. Shelter 5 was located deep within the colony's core, designed to withstand even a catastrophic dome breach. When Sienna arrived, Lin was already there, coordinating the last of the defensive efforts through his tactical display. "Did the message go through?" he asked without looking up. "I don't know," Sienna admitted. "The relay burned out on transmission. It might have reached Earth, or it might have dissolved in the quantum foam." Lin nodded unsurprised. "Then we prepare for the worst." He turned to address the 30-odd colonists gathered in the shelter, scientists, administrators, and a few terrified children clutching their parents. "The pirates will breach this level within the hour. They want slaves and resources, not corpses. Surrender if you must to stay alive. Look for opportunities, but don't be heroes. Our priority now is survival." The next 48 hours passed in a haze of fear and grim resignation. The pirates breached the shelter as predicted, but instead of the immediate slaughter, many had feared the captives were segregated and processed. Valuable specialists, engineers, doctors, and scientists were separated for premium slave markets. Others were designated for labor camps or worse. Sienna and Lin were kept isolated from the other prisoners, their status as colony leaders, marking them for special interrogation. They were brought to what had once been the colony's administrative center, now repurposed as the command post for Kazakh Dren. The pirate warlord was not what Sienna had expected. Rather than some flamboyant caricature of space piracy, Dren was coldly professional, almost corporate in his demeanor. A former guild enforcer, according to rumors, who had discovered that crime paid better than justice. Dr. Marlowe, Commander Lin. He greeted them with unsettling civility as guards forced them into chairs opposite his makeshift desk. "Your reputation precedes you. This colony has resisted longer than most. Impressive, especially with such limited resources." "What do you want from us?" Lin demanded, earning a blow from one of the guards. Dren raised a hand, stopping a second strike. "Information primarily. Your mining operation has been surprisingly productive, despite multiple raids. I want your extraction data, your geological surveys. And then, there's the matter of your research, Dr. Marlowe. Your work with the indigenous microfauna has commercial applications that interest certain parties." Sienna felt a chill run down her spine. Her research cataloging and analyzing the unique adaptive properties of Alaris 7's microscopic life forms had implications for medicine, agriculture, and terraforming. In the wrong hands, it could also be weaponized. "My research was transmitted to the Council database months ago." She lied smoothly. "There's nothing here that isn't already in their archives." Dren smiled thinly. "We both know the Council's bureaucracy moves at a glacial pace, Doctor. Your most recent findings haven't been processed yet." He slid a data tablet across the desk. "Your access codes, please, for the research database." Lin shifted in his seat. "And if we refuse?" "Then we extract the information by less pleasant means," Dren replied with a shrug. "And afterward, instead of the relatively comfortable technician positions I've arranged for you both on Garox Prime, you'll find yourselves in the dilithium mines of Tarsus 4. I'm told the average life expectancy there is measured in weeks, not years." Before either could respond, a junior officer burst into the room, his face pale with alarm. "Sir, multiple contacts dropping out of FTL at the system's edge." Dren frowned. "Council forces?" "Unknown configuration, sir. Not matching any registry in our database." The officer's voice wavered. "They're accelerating toward Alaris 7 at... Sir, these readings can't be right. If they are, these ships are moving at speeds that should tear them apart." For the first time, Sienna saw uncertainty flicker across Dren's features. "Show me," he ordered, following the officer to a tactical display. Sienna and Lin exchanged glances. Could it be had her desperate message somehow reached Earth? She hardly dared to hope. Dren returned moments later, his earlier composure replaced by barely controlled panic. "Get to the ships," he barked at his guards. Prepare for immediate evacuation. Forget the prisoners. Forget the salvage. Move. As the room emptied, Sienna and Lynn found themselves momentarily forgotten in the chaos. Lynn immediately moved to the tactical display Dren had abandoned Sienna close behind him. What they saw stole the breath from their lungs. Dozens of ships were emerging from what appeared to be stable wormholes rather than conventional FTL exit points, a technology thought theoretical at best. The vessels were massive, dwarfing even the largest Council dreadnoughts, their hulls, midnight black, and seemingly absorbing rather than reflecting the light of Tau Ceti. They moved with impossible precision and speed, their formation tightening as they approached Alaris 7. "Those aren't Council ships," Lynn whispered, awe and fear mingling in his voice. "I've never seen anything like them." "Earth," Sienna breathed. "It has to be. They heard us." The pirate fleet scrambled to organize a defense, but they might as well have been children throwing stones at a hurricane. The first salvo from the Earth vessels, brilliant spears of what appeared to be concentrated plasma, cut through 3 pirate cruisers as if they were made of paper. There was no warning, no demand for surrender, only the ruthless efficiency of predators culling prey. Through the viewport, Sienna and Lynn watched as smaller craft detached from the Earth, dreadnoughts, sleek predatory shapes that accelerated toward the remaining pirate vessels with the same impossible speed as their motherships. "Boarding parties," Lynn murmured his tactical training, allowing him to recognize the maneuver. "They're sending in troops." Within minutes, the command center's comm system crackled to life with the panicked reports of pirates throughout the colony. The Earth forces had breached multiple sections simultaneously, their soldiers moving with a speed and coordination that left the defenders in disarray. "They look human, but fight like machines. They're wearing some kind of exo-armor. Our weapons barely slow them down. Fall back to Sector 7. Fall ba." The transmission cut off with a gurgling scream. Lynn's eyes were wide with professional appreciation. "Shock troops. Hit fast, hit hard, never stop advancing. Classic Earth doctrine from the historical records. I never thought I'd see it employed in person." Sienna felt a complex mix of emotions: relief at their imminent rescue, horror at the one-sided slaughter unfolding before them, and a creeping unease at the casual display of overwhelming force. These were her people, humanity's champions, and yet there was something terrifying in the cold precision of their attack. A blinding flash drew their attention back to the viewport. Dren's flagship, a massive converted freighter that had been attempting to flee the system, vanished in a searing ball of plasma fire. Not crippled, not captured, simply erased from existence. "They destroyed it," Sienna whispered. "They could have captured it, taken prisoners, gathered intelligence. They chose annihilation instead." Lynn finished, his expression grim. "A message to others who might consider similar raids." The door to the command center slid open, and both turned to face whatever came next. 3 figures entered, human soldiers in form-fitting black armor that seemed to absorb light, their faces hidden behind polarized visors. They moved with the fluid grace of predators, weapons at the ready. The lead soldier raised a hand to his helmet, and the visor depolarized, revealing a young man's face, pale, scarred, but unmistakably human. "Dr. Sienna Marlowe, Commander Rafe Lynn." His accent was strange, the cadence of his speech slightly off, as if English was both his native language and yet somehow foreign. "Yes," Sienna answered, stepping forward. "You received our message." "Earth answers all calls from its children," the soldier replied with mechanical precision. "I am Captain Trevane, 5th Reclamation Division, Earth Defense Force. This colony is now under our protection. The threat has been neutralized." "The civilians," Lynn began, "the colonists who were taken—" "Recovery operations are underway," Trevane interrupted. "Our boarding teams have secured 87% of the habitable sections. The pirates have been eliminated. Your people are being gathered in the central atrium for medical evaluation and debriefing." Sienna felt a chill at his clinical tone. "Eliminated all of them?" Captain Trevane seemed puzzled by the question. "They were hostiles engaged in slave-taking and murder. The Earth Defense Protocol is clear on the appropriate response." Before Sienna could pursue this uncomfortable line of questioning, the soldier's comm unit chimed. He listened for a moment, then addressed them again. Vice Admiral Thorne requests your presence aboard the flagship Judgment's Wrath. A shuttle is waiting. Lynn and Sienna followed their escorts through corridors, now lined with Earth soldiers, standing guard at regular intervals. The colonists they passed looked shell-shocked, but relieved, many weeping openly, as they were reunited with family members who had been separated during the pirate segregation. The shuttle bay contained a craft unlike any Sienna had seen before, sleek and predatory, with an oddly organic quality to its design. It had none of the visible propulsion systems or external weapons typical of military shuttles, appearing almost seamless. "Molecular bonding," Lynn murmured as they boarded. "No seams, no weak points. The entire hull is essentially one molecule. I thought that was theoretical." The interior was surprisingly spacious and comfortable, though still minimalist in design. As they strapped into the acceleration couches, Sienna noted the absence of visible controls. No pilot, no cockpit, just smooth walls and recessed lighting. "The craft is AI-guided," Captain Trevane explained, noting her confusion. "All Earth vessels contain quantum-paired artificial intelligences. They are extensions of our will." The journey to the flagship was remarkably smooth, with none of the vibration or thrust sensation typical of spaceflight. Through the viewport, Sienna got her first close look at the Earth dreadnoughts. They were even more impressive up close, vast constructs of midnight metal that seemed to bend space around them, their surfaces unmarred by the usual external components that dotted spacecraft. Like the shuttle, they appeared almost grown rather than built. The Judgment's Wrath dwarfed the other vessels, its hull stretching over 5 kilometers from bow to stern. As they approached, Sienna saw no obvious docking bays or airlocks, yet the shuttle moved confidently toward an apparently solid section of the hull. At the last moment, the metal seemed to liquefy, creating an opening that sealed seamlessly behind them once they were inside. "Programmable matter." Lynn breathed, unable to hide his fascination. "Responsive to directed thought if the theories are correct." They were escorted through corridors that, while clearly military in function, had an almost organic flow to their design. The crew they passed moved with purpose, but displayed none of the rigid formality Sienna associated with military vessels. There was a quiet competence to them, a certainty that bordered on serenity. Vice Admiral Thorne received them in a spacious command center, dominated by a 3-dimensional tactical display of the Tau Ceti system. She was a tall woman, with silver-streaked black hair, cropped close to her skull, her weathered face suggesting decades of service. Unlike her subordinates, she wore no visible armor, just a simple black uniform with minimal insignia. "Dr. Marlowe, Commander Lynn," she greeted them with a nod. "Earth welcomes its children home." Sienna found herself at a loss for words. This was the stuff of legends Earth's military might long rumored, but rarely witnessed, now deployed in full force because of her desperate plea. "Thank you for answering our call," she finally managed. "The colony owes you its existence." "It was your right to call and our duty to answer," Thorne replied simply. "Though I admit your method of communication was unconventional. A repurposed quantum research array, ingenious. Our scientists are quite impressed." Lynn stepped forward. "Admiral, while we're grateful for the rescue, I must ask what happens now, to the colony, to our people." "That depends partly on you," Thorne said, gesturing them toward seats around a conference table that rose seamlessly from the floor. "Alaris 7 has always been a human colony, established under Earth territorial rights from before our withdrawal from Council affairs. The fact that you were left unprotected is problematic." She tapped the table, and a holographic display appeared, showing the emblem of the Galactic Council, a stylized representation of diverse species united in harmony. "Our intelligence suggests this was not mere bureaucratic oversight. The Council deliberately diverted resources from frontier protection to core system luxury projects. They were aware of the pirate threat to Alaris 7 and chose to ignore it. Sienna shook her head in disbelief. That can't be right. The Council's founding principle is mutual aid and protection. Principles erode when untested, Thorne replied. The Council has grown complacent in Earth's absence. They believed we had turned inward permanently, that we would never again project power beyond our solar system. A cold smile touched her lips. They were mistaken. She waved her hand and the display changed to show a security recording council chambers, elegant aliens in formal attire discussing resource allocation. With growing horror, Sienna watched as they explicitly designated Alaris 7 as expendable, a regrettable but acceptable loss given its distance from core systems. This can't be, she whispered. This is from 3 months ago, Thorne informed them. One of our deep cover operatives obtained it at considerable personal risk. The Council not only knew of your plight, but calculated that the political cost of helping you was greater than the cost of your loss. They never intended to send aid. Lynn's face had hardened into a mask of fury. And now, what does Earth intend to do with this information? That brings us to why you're here, Thorne said. We're mounting an operation to secure evidence of the Council's deliberate negligence, not just toward Alaris 7, but toward dozens of frontier colonies. We need your expertise, Dr. Marlowe, to decrypt the pirate communication logs. They've been selling their services to certain Council factions targeting specific colonies for reasons that go beyond mere profit. And once you have this evidence, Sienna asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Thorne's eyes gleamed with a cold light. Then Earth returns to the galactic stage, not as a petitioner, but as a reckoning. The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. Sienna found herself working alongside Earth's intelligence analysts, applying her knowledge of xenobiology and frontier communications protocols to decrypt the pirate logs. Lynn joined a tactical team planning what Thorne had cryptically referred to as the demonstration. The pirate data yielded exactly what Earth had suspected proof of a conspiracy, reaching to the highest levels of the Council. Certain Council species had been quietly financing the pirate armadas, directing them toward human colonies and settlements of other species who had fallen out of political favor. It was a shadow war waged through proxies to reshape the balance of power while maintaining the fiction of galactic unity. They've been doing this for decades, Sienna murmured as she compiled her findings. Setting species against each other, allowing entire settlements to be destroyed, to weaken political rivals. Lieutenant Haru Namari, the Earth Fleet's communications officer, who had been assigned as her liaison, nodded grimly. Earth suspected as much. It's why we withdrew from Council affairs in the first place. We recognized the corruption at its core, but lacked the proof needed for direct intervention. And now, Sienna asked. Namari's expression was solemn. Now we have proof and the means to act upon it. The Vice Admiral has already dispatched advance elements to key strategic positions throughout Council space. The next phase begins in 6 hours. What is the next phase exactly? Sienna pressed. No one will tell me. Justice, Namari replied simply. Earth style. When Sienna finally found Lynn, he was on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The Earth fleet had repositioned, forming a protective cordon around Alaris 7, while repair crews worked to restore the colony systems. They're going to attack the Council directly, she said, without preamble joining him at the viewport. Aren't they? Lynn didn't look surprised. Not an all-out war. A surgical strike. They showed me the plans. It's elegant in a terrifying sort of way. But it could trigger an interstellar conflict. The Council members will never stand for such a direct challenge to their authority. The Council members are already fractured, Lynn pointed out. Their unity is a facade. Earth is betting that a demonstration of overwhelming force combined with the evidence of their corruption will prevent a unified response. He turned to face her, his expression troubled. The question is, can we live with our part in this we called Earth? Whatever happens next, that's on us. Sienna thought of the recording she'd seen of Council leaders callously condemning her colony to death, of the families who had suffered and died while waiting for aid that was never intended to come, of the pirate warlords who operated with implicit council approval. I can live with it, she decided. The council's negligence killed our people just as surely as if they had fired the weapons themselves. Silence is complicity. Lin nodded slowly. Silence is complicity, he repeated. Earth answers calls with fire because silence is complicity. A grim smile touched his lips. I think I'm beginning to understand our ancestral home a bit better now. The Earth fleet moved with the same impossible speed that had marked their arrival at Alaris 7. Within hours, they had traversed distances that should have required days of FTL travel, appearing in orbit around Varthex Prime, the administrative heart of the Galactic Council without warning or announcement. Sienna and Lin watched from the command center of the Judgment's Wrath as panic spread through the Council forces. The elegant defense platforms that ringed Varthex Prime scrambled to combat readiness, only to find their systems mysteriously offline. Council warships moved to intercept, but found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn, their weapons unable to lock onto the Earth vessels. No casualties, Thorn ordered as the operation unfolded. Disable their systems, but preserve life where possible. This is a demonstration, not an extermination. The precision of the Earth fleet was awe-inspiring. Concentrated ion bursts neutralized defense systems without harming the operators. Targeted electromagnetic pulses disabled Council vessels without compromising life support. And all the while, Earth's communications remained silent, offering no demands, no ultimatums, no explanation for their presence. Then came the moment Sienna had been dreading. Vice Admiral Thorn turned to her and Lin. It's time for the Council to face those they abandoned, she said. Are you prepared to speak for your people? The Council Tower rose like a gleaming spire from the heart of Varthex Prime's capital city, its architecture a testament to the aesthetic philosophies of a dozen different species. Now, as the Earth shuttle approached that tower, was dark, its power neutralized by the precision strikes of Earth's forces. Sienna and Lin were accompanied by a full squad of Earth's elite troops, their armor now configured for ceremonial display, rather than combat. They moved through the darkened corridors of the Council Tower, with purposeful strides, encountering no resistance. The Council's vaunted security forces had either fled or surrendered at the first sign of Earth's overwhelming technological supremacy. The Council chamber itself was a vast circular room with tiered seating for hundreds of representatives. Now, it stood mostly empty, illuminated only by the emergency lighting and the glow from the Earth soldier's armor. In the center of the chamber, surrounded by his personal guards and a handful of loyal officials, stood Council President Varial, his iridescent scales dulled by stress, his multiple eyes darting nervously from one Earth soldier to another. This is an outrage, he hissed, as Sienna and Lin approached. An unprovoked act of war against the legitimate government of the unified species Earth will answer for this aggression. Earth answers only to justice, Thorn replied, her voice carrying through the chamber, despite its quietness, and to the calls of its children. At her signal, the Earth technicians activated the chamber's own projection system. Above the central dais appeared the damning recordings, council deliberations, callously sacrificing frontier colonies, secret communications with pirate warlords, financial transactions, funding raids against politically inconvenient settlements. You stand indicted for mass negligence, Thorn continued, as the evidence played out before the stunned officials. For the deliberate abandonment of those you swore to protect. For the calculated sacrifice of innocent lives in service to political expediency. Varial drew himself up, his ceremonial robes rustling. We are the Galactic Council. We do not answer to Earth or any single member species. By what authority do you presume to judge us? By the authority of those you condemn to die. Sienna stepped forward, her voice steadier than she had expected. I am Dr. Sienna Marlowe of Alaris 7. We called for help, as our people were slaughtered. The Council received our pleas and chose to ignore them. While you debated policy in these comfortable chambers, our children suffocated as life support failed. Lin added his military bearing, a stark contrast to the council guards who shifted nervously at their posts. While you dined on delicacies, our people starved as pirates. Pirates you secretly funded destroyed our food production. Vahriel's eyes narrowed. Regrettable casualties of frontier expansion. The council must balance the needs of all species, make difficult decisions for the greater... Silence. Thorn cut him off. Your greater good is a fiction that conveniently serves the powerful. That ends today. At her command, a glowing sphere rose from the center of the chamber, a quantum projector that connected simultaneously to every communication system in council space. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds would witness what came next. People of the galaxy, Thorn addressed the unseen audience. Earth has returned from its isolation. We bring evidence of corruption at the heart of the council, evidence that will be freely available on all information networks within the hour. We bring justice for those abandoned to die. And we bring a new covenant. She gestured, and the projector displayed a simple document, the Treaty of Vigilance. From this day forward, any distress call unheeded invites Earth's intervention. Any people abandoned by those sworn to protect them may call upon us. We will answer not with committee meetings and resolutions, but with fire and fury if necessary. The strong will no longer prey upon the weak with impunity. Vahriel laughed, though the sound held more desperation than humor. And who will enforce this treaty? Your fleet is impressive, but you cannot police an entire galaxy. We don't need to, Thorn replied with cold confidence. Because as we speak, similar demonstrations are taking place at strategic points throughout council space. Earth has not been idle during its isolation, Counselor. We have prepared for this day. Our outposts and allies stand ready across the stars. As if to punctuate her words, a blinding beam of focused energy lanced down from orbit, striking the council tower's uppermost spire. The precision was surgical. The beam vaporized only the ornate chamber, where the council's inner circle had made their deadly calculations, harming no one, but leaving the tower's pinnacle, a smoking ruin, visible across the capital. A reminder, Thorn explained to the stunned silence that followed, of Earth's reach and of the consequences of neglect. In the days that followed, the galaxy experienced a seismic shift in power. The Council, its corruption exposed, and its military supremacy shattered in a single stroke, fractured along predictable lines. Some member species denounced Earth's intervention as imperialist aggression. Others, particularly those whose frontier colonies had suffered similar abandonment, openly embraced the Treaty of Vigilance. Most telling was the flood of applications from independent worlds seeking Earth protection. Settlements that had maintained neutrality for generations now rushed to align themselves with humanity's resurgent power, pledging resources, territory, and military support in exchange for the security Earth offered. For Sienna and Lin, the aftermath brought a mixture of relief and unease. They had become unwitting catalysts for a galactic realignment, their desperate plea for help transforming into the spark that ignited Earth's long-planned return to interstellar politics. 2 weeks after the demonstration at Varthex Prime, they returned to Alaris 7, aboard an Earth transport vessel. The colony was transformed, its damaged systems not merely repaired, but upgraded with Earth technology that surpassed anything the Council had ever provided. The defensive grid now featured the same programmable matter as Earth's dreadnoughts, capable of adapting to any attack. Hydroponics bays flourished with genetically optimized crops. Medical facilities boasted regeneration technology previously thought mythical. It's like a different world, Sienna murmured as they walked through the central plaza, now bustling with activity, as colonists and Earth technicians worked side by side. Earth takes care of its own, Lieutenant Namari commented. He had been assigned as the liaison between the colony and the Earth garrison that would remain to ensure its protection. It always has, even when we seemed absent from galactic affairs. Lin surveyed the activity with a professional eye. And the cost of this protection, Earth, doesn't strike me as a charity. Namari smiled slightly. Your colony produces rare minerals, vital to certain Earth industries. Your research, Dr. Marlowe, has applications that interest our xenobiological divisions. A mutually beneficial arrangement has been proposed: protection and technology in exchange for resources and knowledge. Not so different from the Council's arrangements, then, Sienna observed. With one crucial difference, Namari replied. Earth keeps its promises. That evening, as the binary suns of Tau Ceti set beyond the colony's newly reinforced dome, Sienna stood alone on the observation platform. The Earth fleet still hung in orbit, a constellation of midnight vessels, visible even in daylight, their presence both reassuring and intimidating. Lynn joined her, offering a steaming cup of actual Earth-imported coffee, a luxury that had been unimaginable weeks ago. Credit for your thoughts. I was just thinking about consequences, she admitted. About what we set in motion with that desperate transmission. The galaxy will never be the same. For better or worse. Sienna considered the question. The Council was corrupt, negligent. They needed to be held accountable, but Earth's methods... She shook her head. There's something terrifying about their willingness to use overwhelming force even when justified. Power always terrifies those who don't possess it, Lynn observed. But would you rather that power had remained dormant while our people died? No, Sienna answered honestly. No, I wouldn't. They stood in companionable silence for a while, watching as Earth shuttles ferried supplies and personnel between the fleet and the colony. I've been offered a position, Lynn said eventually. Liaison officer with the Earth Defense Force. They want someone who understands frontier colony security, needs to help coordinate their expanded protection network. Sienna wasn't surprised. Lynn's tactical acumen had impressed the Earth commanders. Will you take it? I think so. Someone needs to help them understand the complexities of the frontier. Someone who's seen both sides. He glanced at her. What about you? I hear they're quite interested in your research. They've offered me access to their xenobiological archives, Sienna confirmed. Knowledge gathered from 100 worlds, much of it unknown to Council science. It's tempting. But I also feel a responsibility to this place, to the people who survived because we called Earth. She gestured toward the colony below them, where lights were coming on as night fell. Someone should bear witness to what happened here. Someone should remember. The next morning, as the Earth dreadnoughts prepared to depart, leaving behind a substantial garrison and defense system, Sienna walked to the edge of the colony, to a small plot of land she had set aside. There, she planted a memorial garden using seedlings from Earth that the fleet had brought. At the center stood a simple marker bearing an inscription she had carefully composed. They called Earth for rescue. Earth came with fire and forced the galaxy to remember. As she finished, she noticed Lynn watching from a respectful distance, now wearing the dark uniform of an Earth liaison officer. He approached as she stepped back from the memorial. Will it take root in this soil? He asked, gesturing to the Earth plants. With care and attention, yes, Sienna replied. They're adaptable. These particular species evolved on Earth's most challenging terrains. They know how to survive in hostile environments. Lynn nodded, understanding the metaphor. Like their caretakers. Above them, the massive shapes of the Earth dreadnoughts began to move, accelerating, with that impossible grace, toward the edge of the system. All but one, the Vigilance, newly christened, and assigned as Alaris 7's permanent guardian. They'll be back, won't they? Sienna asked, watching the departing fleet. Whenever someone calls. That's the promise, Lynn confirmed. And Earth keeps its promises. As they turned back toward the colony, Sienna thought about the message they had sent into the darkness and the fire that had answered. About justice and vengeance, protection and power. About silence and complicity. I hope we can live up to the responsibility, she said softly, of being the ones who called the fire. We already are, Lynn replied, his gaze fixed on the horizon, where a new dawn was breaking. By remembering, by bearing witness, by ensuring that silence never again passes for peace. In the shadow of Earth's protection, Alaris 7 would rebuild and grow stronger. And across the galaxy, billions of beings who had watched Earth's demonstration would remember its message that the strong had a duty to the weak, that abandonment would be answered with fire, and that humanity, long dismissed as a species from a death world, had returned to the galactic stage, not as supplicants, but as judges. They had called Earth for rescue. What arrived was a fleet of destruction, and a new age of vigilance had begun.